Hi, welcome to the Nest. This is a short introduction. I'll talk about the Nest in a second, but for now, this is me. My name is Rana. This is Neelam. She works with me. This is where we work. Very cool place. Gotta check it out. If you're in Bangalore, give me a call. This is Nikhil. This is Rajiv. This is Dheeraj. They work here. Very cool place again. Make a note of the little green bar on the right hand side called the healthcare cohort, because on the left is Ishan, on the right is Ajay. They are a part of the healthcare cohort. They run this Uber Health, and we put them through a process. Oh, by the way, they're trying to take on healthcare, this big beast. And we put them through an experimental process called the Nest, and 5 days later they said this, and we thought we'll talk about it. So let's talk about what the Nest is. We think the notion of incubator is flawed for startups. It's a place where you hatch and you leave and you never come back. You graduate and get away. We think Nest is closer to reality, which is a place where you learn to fly, but you come back often. You do graduate, but you come back too, right? And we set out to create a process that works specifically for entrepreneurs and specifically for big systems like healthcare, eventually education and society as well. Let's talk a little bit about startups, because then the process makes sense. This is what startup is supposed to look like, right? This is Eric Ries's engine of growth. You find a need, you put it through a magical process, out pops a prototype, you bring it back to the customer. If he likes it, you're on. If he says it sucks, you go back and try it again. So the first is called the value hypothesis, and it's the leap of faith that he makes, saying if you build it, will they come, right? Did you get the need right so that the value actually will get paid for? And it's actually not a solid line, it's a dotted line, but let's say it's solid for now. And the scaling hypothesis is really, if one person buys it, how will the other people know about it, right? So how will one customer lead to the next? And therefore you pivot and persevere, and a business model kind of emerges through that process. We think actually what being a startup is actually closer to this. It's more about passing through 4 worlds. The first world, and the most concrete, we go from concrete to abstract and back to concrete, is the world of people. Messy, fuzzy, hard to determine. This is what's called customer development or design research. Hard to decipher. People say one thing, do another, right? But you've got to deal with that. One set of worlds, one world. The second world is the world of need. If you talk to enough people and patterns start emerging, you've got to distill it down to the core need for the problem you're trying to solve. What's called a point of view in design, right? And that's kind of the transition to the world of ideas, because if you have need and you know the problem is, can you figure out the solution? Obviously, lots of ideas help. And then from that, coming back to the world of prototypes is a little scary transition, because it's always easy to talk, hard to do. But once you do have a prototype, you've got to go back to the world of people and ask them, do you like it? Usually the first time they will not, because you built it for yourself. And as you do it a couple of times, it gets better and better and better. Now, it's a dotted line because it's not easy transitioning through these worlds. And essentially, you need bases to go through these worlds. So that's the basic idea. Provide bases on these 4 worlds, and people can simply circle the bases and create a home run, right? Let's talk about what it feels like. This is what a startup feels like. Way to go, Buster. Here's a graduation. Now go fly, right? The big ulp. Hope you make it. Let us know how it went. We think, and what happens really is that you kind of go out, you graduate, and the real work starts once you graduate, right? And you kind of have an idea, you make it. Some people say they like it, and you're stuck in no man's land. You change it again, you change it again. It's very jittery, the whole process, systemically unbalanced, I would say. So what we think is the first thing, the first order of duty is to provide a secure base where you can learn without fear, right? Where experimentation with the intent of making money is possible, acceptable, and the risks are managed by more than just you and your co-partner. So therefore you call it the Nest. And we think the process really is creating bases that you travel around, and we're doing this with D.Labs. But first thing we have to do is simplify the grammar. You can't spend time teaching design to entrepreneurs. They're way too solution focused. So really simple grammar that doesn't sound like design, just plain English. We talk about situations and interventions. I'll talk about situation in a second, and guided mastery. And they're raring to go, so you've got to guide them through the process and at some point transition over to them. In our case, it took about 3 days of mastery in the first place, and then we slowly transitioned on day 4 and day 5 to them. So what are the elements of the Nest? Well, we talk about situations. That's the heart of the whole thing, right? A situation is a mini system. If you break up a situation, you have aspects of an ecosystem which are dysfunctioning. Think of an ecosystem like healthcare as a massive living organism, and which is experiencing pain. And if you find a certain area where there is pain, that's your situation, right? Once you go into it, you will find a moment that's worth mediating, and then at that moment you do something, right? So we talk about situations. We also talk about interventions. Big systems can't be changed in a disruptive manner. That just the industry mechanism takes care of that. Clayton Christensen. Big systems can be intervened, which means you go into areas where the most help is needed and make a specific intervention because the system is capable of learning. It will change. Okay. We also talk about making the process of empathy easier. We talk about quick empathy, right? Using the power of narratives. We talk about discovering pain. Once you know a situation, it's very easy to find the pain. Just blow it out. You will find a specific moment where there is pain. We also talk about thinking in journeys. There are journeys that are across time and journeys in time. So we use systems thinking to model journeys across time, right? Where time delays, oscillations are considered. And service design for mapping a journey in time. Very powerful language. And we think about ideas in situation, not random ideas. You know, of course, you still go for crazy ideas, but it has to be embedded in a situation in a moment. How will you help a situation in a moment? So some amount of pragmatism along with thinking crazy is introduced. And prototypes, obviously, that's known. And then helping build the community contacts, right? Taking them back for feedback sessions and building the muscle about how do you listen to feedback, how do you include feedback into your process. That's the basic idea. What we hope will happen because of this is that you start from people, not from ideas, and you kind of slingshot your way through the process, eventually arriving at a much better transition. You may still have to pivot, but the pivot is probably a lot smoother, right? So you head towards true north much quicker rather than oscillate crazily left and right. Um, that's the basic idea. Of course, since we talk about healthcare, we also help them think about a mindset in which to approach healthcare. Healthcare is not a machine to be broken up into a million parts and attacked. It is a learning system. Therefore, you can introduce small interventions and watch what happens with the intervention. And if it changes the balance, go and do more of that. Otherwise, change approach. And how to approach making changes, right? So this is from the World Economic Forum. We can talk about this later. Um, and that's it. I know I sped through it, but I wanted to keep it under 10 minutes. Thank you for listening. In case you want to talk to us, just look at the rest of the details on the blog. You can mail me at rana.chakrabarti@sap.com, on neelam.shet@sap.com. We'd happy to talk to you. Thank you. Bye.